Oh, and I almost did it again. So I was just saying how grumpy I'm getting because this is my third time doing this video and I keep forgetting to turn on the mic. So it's on now because I can see the light on. Okay, so what we're trying to talk about is, I can't eat it on camera, but what we're trying to talk about is the most common question that we get in radiology. And that is, how much money do you make? How much can I make? How much does it make in CT? How much does it make if I'm an X-ray tech? Blah, blah, blah. I have a whole article that answers this on my blog, the Radiologic Technologist.com. And this question is stemming from our Rad Tech group. I have a Facebook group called the Radiologic Technologist group. You're welcome to join, ask questions. It's pretty active and I'm on there every day answering questions. And so somebody stopped by and said, I've been curious about the salary for newly graduated rad techs. What is the starting salary and what is the most rad techs can make if they specialize in MRI, CT, etc.? So first of all, that depends on a whole bunch of different things. I can tell you starting salaries between 50 and 60,000 a year, but that's only good for America. It's only good for certain size hospitals. It's only good for new grads. And it only will be that amount if you're at a hospital that pays that amount, if the cost of living is a certain range. In other words, California is going to pay you way more than that. I've heard of X-ray techs making $85,000 a year in California, but they're paying $80,000 a year in living expenses. So I have a whole different article discussion about where should you work to keep the most money in your pocket, and that is where you should go after watching this, because I can say you'll make $55,000 a year, but depending on where you live, you may need to get a second job just to make your bills, because $55,000 isn't enough where you live. So I've done a study that shows which states allow you to keep the most money out of your paychecks, and we'll talk about that later. So let's pop over to this article, because there's no point in reinventing the wheel because I've already written an article. So here is the radiologictechnologist.com. And here's a search bar where in this particular case, you would type in the word salary. And it would bring up all my articles on salaries. And this is the best one for this particular instance. And it's called Radiology Tech Salary Per Hour. I know because I am one. And I said that in this article because one of the reasons I started the blog and YouTube channel, there's a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is there's so much disinformation out there that it's ridiculous. There are so many websites that are just trying to make money, because if you go to their website and they have an ad for a radiology school on the side and you click on it and you ask for more information, they actually get paid for you doing that. So it doesn't really matter to them what kind of information they give you. They just want you to click and go somewhere and sign up for something so they get paid. So I pointed out a couple at the time here. Cron comes up as one of the top searches when you do X-ray tech salary, and Radiology Schools 411. Neither one of these guys know anything about our world. They don't know what we do. They don't even call us by the right title. They refer to technicians. They say that about 30 states require candidates to pass the ARRT cert. No, there's only 5 left that don't require it. So there's a lot more than 30 that require it. So how outdated is their information? They refer to a salary survey from 2010. I mean, you can Google this stuff, So don't get your information from the top Google searches. Get it from somebody that knows what they're talking about. And actually, if you really want to know, you should be able to call the hospital where you're interested in applying and say, I'm interested in going to X-ray school. I'm doing my initial research. Can you tell me the range of the pay for X-ray? And most hospitals are fine with telling you the range. They can't tell you exact, because anybody that got hired for less than that will complain. But they should be able to tell you the range, which will give you an idea of what it pays. And if they won't, that's a little concerning. Why are they not willing? Because they pay so little. That's why they don't want to talk about it. So I can say $50,000 to $60,000 a year is a common base salary, but again, it depends on a lot of things. So we have shift differential, which means if you have a successful interview and HR calls you and says, we like the interview, we're hiring you as an X-ray tech, we want to offer you $20 an hour, do you accept? That is your base salary. And that is not all you're going to get paid. That is just what they call the base salary. Then if you sign up for, they've got day shift, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Those people get paid a base salary. If you work a shift after that, later than that, say second shift from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. or overnight from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., hospitals pay you more money because less people want to do that job. So you'll get a shift differential of quite a bit, probably a couple of bucks an hour at least, on top of, so if you got offered 20, you'd now be at 22 if you took the second shift. And then if you took the night shift, you might be at 23.
So
and then
I work a 12-hour shift, and for 2 hours of my shift, I get a shift diff for night shift.
Because it crosses over into that second shift differential.
Yeah, so for just 2 hours, I
then,
get one.
And then the same thing for weekend. They get even more pay because nobody wants to work weekends. And then the cream of the crop, if you'll work weekend nights, you get a ton. So way back in 2005, when I graduated Xray School, I hired on at a local hospital at around $19 an hour, and I ended up at $27 an hour right out of school because I took the Friday, Saturday, Sunday night shift. So there's your weekend differential. And then outside of your normal work hours, you can be on call, which means if 3 techs are working and they get busy, they call the call tech in to help them out. You come in, you help out till you're caught up, and then you go back home. To be on call, you get paid $2 to $3 an hour just to be on call, which means if you take a 24-hour call shift and you're on call all Saturday, even if you never get called, you just made 24 hours times $2 an hour. So you just paid $50, $48 just for being available. And then if you do get called in, you're going to get paid time and a half. So at $20, that means you're now making $30 an hour. Plus, you get a minimum of 2 hours for getting called in.
At most places.
At most places. So that's $40 to come in and do an exam to help out. And then it goes hourly. You get paid hourly. So you're at $30 an hour when you're getting called in to help out.
And you find the hard thing is if you are that night shift person working and you need help, by the time somebody gets there to help you, you're already done, unfortunately. So then that person comes in, they hang out for a while, and they get paid for 2 hours, and they usually go home.
Right. So since the question asked about, well, what's the most you can make in MRI, CT, and all that stuff? Well, first of all, just to clarify or give some people who may not know, this is the list of all the different modalities. Not all of them, but most of them. I noticed DEX is not on there, and I think there's a few others that you can do. But for the most part,
some places too, fluoro, just doing plain old fluoro exams, like I know in California, that's separate too. That's actually a separate license, a separate everything. So, but this is just the generic form, because here, as an X-ray tech, we do all of that, and we don't have to have a separate license.
Well, you do.
Fluoro exams?
Yeah, all of fluoro.
Yeah, fluoro, X-ray, and OR.
Right.
I mean, we have a dedicated OR tech, but we're asked to also go in and help out when he needs help. So we do all of those.
Right. So what is the starting salary?
I think $19, $20 is a good.
But it's going to vary. I've seen people in Alabama are like 16, 17. Seriously? Louisiana, yeah, they're getting screwed over there. I mean, it's. I don't mean to laugh, but what sucks is sometimes you have to work where you live and you can't leave, and those people are really just, you're getting taken because who else can do our job? Nobody.
Is their cost of living a lot less?
Not necessarily. So let's look at that article after this one on who lets you keep the most money in your pocket. But here's some lists that I went through. Computed tomography or CT could be around $27 an hour. It depends on how much experience you have and what the place will pay. And again, like I said, in California, you could be making $40 an hour as a CT tech at the blink of an eye. Yeah. MRI. So this is just kind of showing you that it goes up based on these modalities. When you go from X-ray to CT, you jump up a little bit, and then it's up even higher for MRI. It's about the same rate as MRI when you get into IR. It could be a little bit higher. Ultrasound's right around that same tier. Nuclear medicine, maybe just a little bit more. But the other thing to think about is how many techs do they need in these departments? Like, you know, X-ray, you're going to need, depending on the size of the facility, you could need 30 X-ray techs, where nuke med, you only have 4. So do you really want to go to school for 2 years to get a nuke med license and have a 1 in 4 shot of getting a position if it's not already full? You know, you got to wait till somebody quits or whatever.
Or even radiation therapy. That one's even harder.
That's the one I left off of that other list, was radiation therapy. So I talked about specific shifts can make more money, and I explained it in this article. I've already kind of talked about that. I ended up, on here I said 26. It was 26 or 27. Location has a lot to do with it. You know, we're talking about how much money do you make. Hospitals typically pay more than clinics, but clinics don't have any call or weekends or nights.
Holidays.
Or holidays.
Yeah.
So is it worth making a few less dollars per hour to know that you're done at 5 o'clock or whenever your last patient leaves?
Yeah. So for me being a mom, that's worth it. I get the holidays off. I don't work weekends with my kids. So I work clinic because I like that. And I get paid less, yes, but that's also because I just do X-ray. I don't have, like you said, I don't have to take call. I don't work weekends. I don't work holidays. Always have the holidays off.
You don't do OR.
And I don't do oral. I don't do fluoro. I
don't
don't.
do the ED.
And I don't have to work that close with the doctors, which in my opinion, I am willing to forego the pay to not have to sometimes work with doctors. I mean, I still work with doctors. I work with your clinical doctors that, you know, see patients day to day. But in my opinion, those doctors, for the most part, tend to be a little bit kinder than sometimes your surgeons or, you know, even your radiologists. Sometimes your radiologists can be not so kind, and I don't have to work. I mean, I still work with them because they read all my exams, but I don't work side by side with them in the fluoro cases or, you know, lumbar punctures or injections or any of those types of things. So for me to be, and I get to work by myself. And for me, that's a complete bonus too, because although I'm in a clinic and I work with other people, my job is my job and nobody else can do it. So there's no argument with, is anybody working harder than anybody else, which is sometimes a fight with
that's pretty
departments.
Common. So this also depends on, you know, we talked about hospitals and clinics, but there's also mobile X-ray companies that you can work for that pay completely different. I did a podcast with the lady that does the X-rays in Hollywood, and she has some great stories about the stuff she's done, and she actually gets tipped from these movie stars. But and experience has a lot to do with it. I say fresh out of school, maybe you're 18 to 21. With 10 years experience, you could be at 23 to 27. And there's no way to fake the experience really, because we verify what you do and what you know, and we ask you, you know, walk me through a small bowel follow through and tell me how you do it. And talked about that, talked about being on call.
And to be honest, most of the times, I mean, you know, we hire our students, you know, so that was a 6 months. We know what they can do and what they can't do. And
so I give a little thing here to remember when you're interviewing. How many beds does the hospital have? How long has it been in business? What communities does it serve? Check out and all that can be found on their website. And one of the most important things I would ask is if the facility cross-trains. Because if they say no, then you should know that you're never getting out of X-ray. If they say yes, then you should ask, great, how often? Because if it's once every 5 years, you're still pretty limited. But if it's as the need arises, you want to be able to cross-train into CT, into MRI. As a director myself, I cross-trained probably 5 techs a year. And I would cross-train from X-ray to CT, X-ray to MR, CT to MR, X-ray to IR. I even did X-ray to ultrasound. And
smaller clinics, yeah. And that's the other thing too, is your smaller hospitals are more willing to cross-train than your bigger hospitals.
And they'll pay more because you have to do more. So that's the thing too. When you're just general X-ray and that's all you know, you get a flat pay plus whatever your shift diffs are and all that. But once you learn other modalities, you typically get paid that higher modality no matter what you're doing. So if you're working in a little 30-bed hospital and you're one of 4 techs and that's all there is, and you're doing X-ray, CT, and MR, you're going to get paid MR wages all the time, even if 80% of your day is doing X-rays. because they should be paying you at your highest license.
License,
If you're,
key word.
if they're not, they're ripping you off.
But it's also a little bit harder too sometimes in those smaller hospitals to get your license. It might take a little bit longer because you are not getting all the studies as often as you would at a bigger hospital.
Yeah, you may have to go to the big sister or big brother hospital to get the comps you need.
To be able to sit for that board exam
Yeah.
so that you can get paid. Because I know our hospital cross trains and you will be working in that modality, but until you get your license, you will not be paid that modality's wages.
Right. Yeah, if you're lucky, you get paid for the training. I did that when I was director. I paid for the training. Some places don't.
Some places you have to pay to go to school to do it. So that
Right.
obviously is not cross training, but.
So if you're an X-ray tech and you want to be an MRI, you can go to the Weber State MRI program, pay them for school, do your free clinicals at our hospital, and then get your license. So, but you got to think about it too. In those smaller hospitals, if they don't pay you, I mean, this is kind of what you use in your leverage. Would you rather pay me MRI tech wages and have me do X-ray, CT, and MRI, or do you want to hire an X-ray tech, a CT tech, and an MRI tech, and have all three of us sitting around?
And that's going to cost you more too than paying one
more.
tech to do all of the modalities.
So last, I'll say, you know, if you do get a job offer, because we're talking about salaries, you never accept your first offer. They're not gonna, if they say, we'll offer you $20 an hour, and you say, you know, I really think $20.50 is more along, you know, whatever your spiel is. They're not gonna say, nope, never mind, you can't work here. They're just gonna say, our budget can't. They'll have a song and dance about, no, our budget can't handle this. We did, what do they call it? We did countrywide baseline studies, and this is what we came to. Then you just go, okay, I really am looking forward to work here. Let's move forward. But never accept your first offer. Just don't be stupid with your counter offer. If they offer you 20, don't ask for 28.
Yeah.
I've asked for as little as like 25 cents just so that I can nudge it just a little bit more. Because again, this is your base salary. A lot of people get hung up on this. I should ask for more. Yeah, you should, but we're still only talking about the base salary here. That's not all you're going to get paid. Plus, you're still going to get your annual raises, your cost of living, or merit increases, whatever that facility gives. So don't get so hung up on what that initial salary is. But I always encourage people to ask for just a little bit more. I just did a video on that just a couple of videos ago. If you want to go look it up, I think what I said one time was, thanks for the offer. I'm really looking forward to working here. You know, my dad taught me never to accept the first offer. So I'd like to counter with 2075. Where do I sign? And you just put a big smile on your face, and they'll either go, oh, all right, we'll do that. Let's move forward. Or they'll say, yeah, no, our budget really can't handle that. And you just say, hey, I tried. I can tell my dad, at least I tried. Where do I sign? And you just keep going. It's not that big of a deal to counter offer. Just don't be stupid with it.
And don't be afraid too, once you do get hired, to say, hey, I'm a tech 1. How do I go about becoming a tech 2? What does it mean to be a tech 2? You know, and if they say, well, you have to be in the field for so many years, then you know, but at least you can work towards that. If there's other things like our tech 2s are required to be in the field for so many years, and then also take on something like, I don't know, for instance, checking the lead, or you know what I mean? Some kind of leadership. You have to be in leadership over somebody, or, you know, maybe that's a tech 3 that they take leadership. So just always, if you do want to move up, don't be afraid to ask what it takes to go to the next level.
So I think we've covered most of it. I guess the only other part I'd add in about, you know, you're talking about salary, is make sure you apply where you want to be. Don't just apply to the local hospital. Do your research on the hospital. How many times have they flipped CEOs? How many times have they flipped imaging directors? Some hospitals just churn and burn, and they don't care about the radiology department. And it's interesting because radiology is at least the second highest earner for the hospital, at least, if not the top. Usually the OR nudges us out because they just charge, you know, $50,000 for a clavicle
on
repair.
top of, like at our hospital, when we do OR cases, we don't get any payment for that. So we have a tech up there all day long who works 9 to 5 plus, you know, weekends and every other time that we have. So we have a dedicated 40-an-hour-a-week employee that we get no money for, which is another hot topic, which is kind of ridiculous. But I think that, you know, in all reality, we are one of the top money makers for the hospital.
So in other words, we can't bill for that time. The cost of the X-ray work is wrapped up in the cost of the surgery. So I may be paying $30 an hour for the OR tech, and he may be up there for a 4-hour case. So I'm out $120, and I don't get any reimbursement out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that I've been in the forums of the managers, and it's like that across the country. So my point is, check out the facility and make sure that there's some evidence that they care about the radiology department. Do they have some of the latest equipment, or is it all old and outdated? Mostly look at how often the leadership turns over, because facilities that have a new CEO every 2 years, that's a bad sign.
Also know how they hire. So at our facility, typically we hire from within our PRN group. So if you want to get into our hospital, you go in as PRN.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then when a position opens up, the people who are PRNs that want full-time, and not all of them do, but a lot of them do as well. So know that we hire from that before we hire from the outside. Not always, but a lot of times that's how it works. So know that too. And also know that unfortunately, X-ray typically has a highest turnover from all of the modalities, because people do want to move up, and X-ray for most people is just a stepping stone. So know that turnover typically tends to be higher, and that if you take a position, ask. Sometimes they make you stay in that position for a year or 2 years before they let you move into a different hours. But ask, say, hey, okay, I'm willing to take this weekend shift, but it's not what I want. So if a position opens up 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, can I move into that spot? Don't be afraid to ask those questions as well. And know that you may have to take the crappy shifts first, the 2 to 10:30, which is, in my opinion, one of the crappiest for family. But
people without families don't have an issue.
But also know that sometimes you do have to take those crappier shifts before you can get the good shifts.
And that's a great point, because a lot of people, I've seen that question a lot, is there's no full-time spots near me. Maybe this was the wrong field to go into. Well, first of all, that depends on where you're at. Because if you're in Chicago or New York or Dallas, there's so many schools in those locations, and there's so many people in those locations, it's probably fully staffed. And what you do is you get on, like she said, PRN, and wait your turn. And you can PRN at 3 hospitals at once. The beauty of being a PRN, which is a Latin, what's it called? Not an anagram, a Latin phrase for as needed. If the hospital calls you and says, I've got a shift tomorrow at 5 a.m., a PRN tech can say no. You can turn that down. You are not obligated at all. If you are a part-time tech with designated hours, meaning you have to work 8 hours every 2 weeks minimum, then they can tell you you're coming in tomorrow. So that's the key to being a PRN versus a true part-time employee. You don't. So if you go PRN at 3 places and 2 of them call you, don't feel bad about turning one of them down. Take the one that's the most loyal, or that pays the most, or that you get treated better at, or whatever.
Or the one you want to work at eventually.
Right. So you can't expect to get a full-time job when you first get out of school, although there's a lot of places that you can. Here in Idaho, we always need techs. Last year or 2 years ago, I did a study in our system that had about 9 hospitals. We were short about 13 ultrasound techs. And you can't just go pluck them out of the local communities. So there's always a need, but it depends on where you're at. There's always a need for X-ray techs, especially. That's why you ask at the hospital, how often do you cross-promote or cross-train? Because if they don't, that means when a spot comes open in CT, they're going to hire from outside, and the X-ray techs stay in X-ray. You want to be able to cross-train and move up.
And also remember, PRN, you know, if you have 30 employees at the hospital that work X-ray, which you're PRNing for, all those techs want to take vacations. All those techs need time off. Mm-hmm. They get sick. They get this. They get that. So a lot of our PRN techs, right now they're working like 40 hours a week, because, you know, with COVID and all those things, they're really hitting hard on, if you're sick at all, please don't come in. And if we call in sick, we're not getting docked for it. You're not getting in trouble for, you know, sick calls like, hey, you've had 10 of them, you know, they don't care right now. They want you to call out sick if you're sick because they don't want you coming in. So I know our techs right now are getting a lot of hours and they get paid more too. If you are PRN, you get paid more because you're not getting any benefits. You're not getting any PTO. You're not getting any health benefits or anything like that. So you get paid more for that as well. And like just a couple weeks ago, we had a tech who just recently quit, and she quit because she got a job at our hospital, but she wanted a job at another hospital that was closer to her home. And she went PRN there until a spot came open that worked for her. And it came open just recently. And so she put her 2 weeks in and now she's working at that hospital. So remember, you know, sometimes we take jobs that we don't necessarily want. And we're looking for that perfect job. Well, just take the job, PRN at that perfect job, and hopefully eventually it'll work out. And like I said, PRNs typically, and specifically at our hospital, they get first dibs. Just the way it works.
And so you're probably already a student there, so you know what it's like. But maybe you're in a bigger market where there's multiple hospitals, and maybe your school didn't let you do clinical rotations at all of them. Pick up PRN at the one you know and the other ones and start to feel them out and see which one you want to work at, because that's one thing that I'd like to get out there more to the rad tech public is I just feel like these guys don't know how valuable they are. Like these guys in Louisiana and Illinois and places where you're making $17 an hour, these hospitals cannot function without a radiology department.
Nope.
And sometimes we just don't know that, or we get so worried about paying our bills or taking care of our families and all that stuff that we let them step on us and take advantage of us. You know, like the big recent fad was to send everybody home and make them use their PTO, which is not what PTO was for. PTO is something you earn so that you can take off time off when you need it to refresh your batteries, not to take time off so that the hospital doesn't have you there and they save money. It doesn't work that way.
Unfortunately, they can make you though.
And I'm just hoping to show the value. We go to school for 2 years. We take an incredibly hard licensure test. Patients' lives are in our hands. I mean, there are situations where patients can die if we don't do our jobs right. We go to school for 2 years. A nurse goes to school for 2 years.
And then, you know, we take more than one, you know, national board if we are multiple modalities. You know, there's lots that, you know, if you're certified in 2 or 3 different areas, you know, you've taken 3 or 4 tests, and those tests are hard. And now for all you new students, you're doing that every 10 years.
Yeah.
You're having to redo that every 10 years, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. Sorry
you
about
know,
that.
And I mean, it would be nice if we were, I mean, I think, you know, sometimes we're not recognized for what we do, but, you know, at the same time, that's why we chose to be in X-ray or, you know, imaging in general, is because for me personally, I guess this may not apply to everybody, but the reason why I picked that over nursing is because I don't want to see their care. I mean, I don't want to be there from the beginning to the end. I like the communication I get with my patients. I like taking care of people, but I like to take care of you right now, you know, help you figure out, maybe hopefully figure out what has happened or what's wrong, if something's broken or something's not working right, or, you know, whatever it may be, and then say, see ya, bye. And I don't have to sit there and take care of you and listen to you ring your thing saying, I need a drink, or, you know, can I go to the bathroom? Can I do this? Can I do that? Those are things that I didn't want to do, but I wanted to be in healthcare and help people, just not to that extent. So, and this allows us to do that.
So the way I look at that is I got into it partially because I like to solve problems. I like to be, you know, a patient comes in, something hurts, we got to figure out what it is. I can do my exam in 20 minutes or less and help to solve that problem, and I'm on to the next patient. So we're problem solvers, where I look at nursing as caregivers. They're in charge for their entire shift of between 1 and 10 patients.
That's a good analogy.
Of providing care for it. So the ED figured out what the problem was, hopefully. The doctors, the radiology techs, everybody that's a part of the ED team figures out what it is, and then they admit the patient, and then a nurse has to take care of them for the duration of their care with the oversight of the doctor. And so I would rather spend 15 minutes with several patients and see if I can't solve those problems than just to sit there and take care of the same. And if you're a nurse working 312s in the ICU where you may only get 2 patients, you could get those same 2 patients for 3 days in a row. So if you get one patient that's really grouchy, you get 72 hours of a really grouchy patient.
For possibly a week, 2 weeks, months.
Yeah. So,
and the nice thing is we do get a change of scenery if we're working in a hospital and we want it. Our change of scenery is OR, fluoro, ER. So in ours, in the main department, they kind of do a rotation. And, one day when you get in, you may be in charge of the ER. The next day you may be in charge of, the main area, which would be any kind of walk-ins, maybe some portables up in the floors, anybody that needs to come down, as well as fluoro, which, obviously that's not just one person taking care of that. But, that, and then maybe you'll be called to go to the OR. We do have a specific OR tech, but, he can only be in one OR at a time. So there's oftentimes that somebody has to go up and help him out and do an OR case as well. And sometimes we have an outpatient OR that people have to go and run. So
that's what a lot of people don't get about general X-ray, is that X-ray techs have to do a lot of stuff. CT techs, and I'm registered in CT, you
sit in a room and they bring you your patients.
Well, if you're lucky, somebody else is putting them on the table and you're just sitting at
Yeah.
your console, scan. But an X-ray, like she just said, you got to be able to go to the OR, the ER, the ICU, fluoro, outpatient, inpatient, traumas, portables. You're all over the place. And I think that's what most healthcare doesn't really understand, is they think you're an X-ray tech, you take X-rays. Yeah, but dude, I got to know how to do inpatients and outpatients, traumas and walkie-talkies, ICUs that have 15 lines in them, post-ops, ORs. There's a lot of stuff to X-ray, and that's step one in the radiology world. Then you go to other modalities.
I mean, we administer contrast. We don't do IV contrast, but we still,
No, we give IV.
Well, but
for
we don't,
IVPs, not common very much anymore.
Well, but we don't put it in an IV and stuff like they do in CT or MRI.
Well,
we just usually drink them. But
techs are trained. We're trained in school to start IVs.
Yeah, no thanks.
You just didn't like it.
No, I don't like it.
Yeah, we're trained because technically we can give meds in the sense that we give contrast. Contrast is a medication.
But for most X-ray fluoro cases, there's not a lot of IV contrast. It's mostly oral. You drink it. And
okay. So that was our talk on pay. It's a big topic.
And lots of sidetracks.
Yeah, but we've never really given all that information. So now we have. There's just a lot of different ways to make pay. So if you have any other questions about the craft, we're both very passionate about radiology. We've been in it since 2003. That's when I started. She started right after I did.
2009. And I love my job. I truly like what I do. Do the politics suck sometimes? Heck yeah. Do we not get treated as well as we would like to? There's sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but I think that goes with any job you do. But at the same time, I enjoy what I do. I like taking X-rays. I like taking care of people in that way, where I can get them in and get them out. And at the same time, I like teaching students. I have students that come in and I teach students all the time.
Which should be another pay.
It's not at my hospital for me, but
most places will pay you an additional stipend of $1 an hour or something like that when you're teaching a student. But where she's
I like doing that as well. So, hopefully if you get into it, you like your job. Maybe you should shadow. I shadowed, and I had never even imagined going into healthcare. He kind of nudged me in that way. And, my family was not any healthcare in any way. So it wasn't something I was looking for, but I ended up really liking it because I like to help people. But I found out that I don't want to teach like with children, which is the way I was kind of headed.
So you don't like peds, you mean?
No, I actually love peds.
Ugh.
I love kids. I love peds. I like working with them. I do well with kids, but not teaching them. So I love to teach the students that we get in X-ray because it's my job and I like to teach it, and they're adults, not children. But I do like working with children as far as doing their X-rays and doing those kinds of things. But,
Like I've seen jobs for X-ray techs at pediatric hospitals, and I couldn't imagine X-raying kids all day long with all the screaming and the squirming. And
But they're not all that way.
no, not all, but I mean, I can just imagine at a pediatric hospital,
But at
it's
least
got to
when
be
I,
more stressful.
at least when I get a child who's screaming and crying, usually it's because they don't understand, they're scared, they're things like that. I would way rather have that than an adult who is a total jerk and treats you like crap.
Or drunk from the
Yeah.
ER. Yeah.
Calls you an idiot, or I mean, because you get all kinds.
Yeah, you do.
I would way rather have a kid that I know just doesn't quite understand and is scared or something of that extent than an adult who knows better and is just a jerk. So you get those.
So if you're still interested in radiology after listening to us, check out my blog, because I talk about the dangers of the field. I talk about how drunk patients can take a swing at you. And
oh, it's time to pick up kids.
Okay. And the different aspects of the job. There's over 100 articles. Check it out. You're going to get one of them. And if you have any more questions, leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps in the algorithms, I think, to get us out there to more people. And this should answer the question on the Facebook group, and we'll go from there. Thanks for stopping by. Come on.